trying to make sure that I'm trying to fully appreciate and observe what I'm going through. And again, I think you're making the point that I don't want to define myself by this one moment or this one experience or whatever, happens to be going on at that moment in time. That's not all of my experience. That's not all of me. I was trying to make the comment, it's a collective experience, right? That we have. It's a collective experience of things that we share. And I'm not going to be defined by this one thing that goes on.
The reason I'm bringing this up because I think it's important to realize that just because you're feeling it in your body, and our bodies are our vehicle, they're not really us. The us is really that observant self, the self that's observing the things that are going on in that vehicle. Like if you're driving your car and your engine breaks down, you don't go like, oh, like everything's going bad right now. Like the engine is not working.
What component? What
component is not working? Let me observe. Let me even open the hood. Let me do some shadow work, inner work, and let's figure out where that's coming from, and really diving into in that way. And at the same time, because if otherwise the engine broke down and we just stayed at the wheel and you're like, oh my god, everything's going, and we just allow that to become our identity, our reality, then we can really go about finding solutions for whatever it is that we're feeling. Does that make sense?
Oh, that absolutely makes sense, man. I mean, like you said, even thinking it in the context of trying to make sure that I'm trying to fully appreciate and observe what I'm going through. And again, I think you're making the point that I don't want to define myself by this one moment or this one experience or whatever, happens to be going on at that moment in time. That's not all of my experience. That's not all of me. I was trying to make the comment, it's a collective experience, right? That we have. It's a collective experience of things that we share. And I'm not going to be defined by this one thing that goes on. So my responsibility is to understand how to navigate all of it. The good, the not good, the in-between, when I'm feeling great, when I'm not feeling so good. I have to learn how to do all of that. That is healthy functioning. And I think for a lot of us, like we said before, it's difficult. It's very difficult to understand how to, when I'm not in the best of mood, to know how to be patient, to know how to soothe myself, how to cope, how to reach out for help for a lot of the men out there, right? When I don't know what to do, but I know that I need some assistance because I'm kind of struggling right now. We got to learn how to do all of that. And so I'm hoping that by identifying that those emotions serve a purpose and a function, we don't want to simply absolve them, pretend they don't exist anymore, and like, okay, let's just keep it moving. No, we want to acknowledge them and let that help us understand maybe there's something going on. And I need to make sure that's pointing me in the direction. I need to do something to deal with that, not simply sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yes, 100%. I love it, and that's why I love calling emotions a flag, because hey, it's your body telling you something, and we have the option. Even I would definitely use the word option to determine if what we're feeling is helpful in the situation that we're in or not. For example, public speaking, I used to struggle a lot with public speaking. I used to get really nervous, and I still do. It's something.
Hey, I have my moments.
Exactly. I still do, to keep it 100. But at the same time, I know that a lot of the time, that's my body kind of just, if I'm getting nervous or anxious, that's my body's way of trying to keep me safe, trying to keep me alive. But by me going and speaking in public, I'm not gonna die. I'll be okay. So it's important for us to take that time and really ask ourselves, okay, I'm feeling this. Is this helpful right now? So that we can actually start looking at them and we can acknowledge them. And you might still even go and be speaking and still feel it in your body, feel that nervousness, but just kind of reminding yourself, oh, actually, yes, body, I get where you're coming from. But right now, this is not really helpful for me, and I'm gonna do this because this is gonna help me move closer to my values,
right?
And actually allow me to live the life that I want to live. And most of the time, when we are actually able to acknowledge them, feel them, and do the things that actually move us closer to our values, you start realizing those emotions actually kind of dying down, and all emotions, they might even go away. I'm not saying that every time that you acknowledge them and accept your emotions, they're just going to disappear. No,
Right.
but it's important to remember that emotions are passive. They'll pass. They'll eventually move away from them. You can't be sad. Well, I guess you could, but you couldn't be consistently sad for a year and just feel sadness for a year. It would be really difficult, or you most likely need a little more extra support. But
Absolutely.
overall, like, the idea is that emotions are going to come and go, right? That's the
Mhm.
main point that I'm trying to get across here. The emotions are going to come and go. I like to think of this analogy that I think works really well, and there's a quote that I heard, and it's, we are the sky, the emotion or emotions are clouds. Sometimes it might be stormy, sometimes it might just be a couple of clouds here and there, and sometimes it was like, okay, so those clouds are not moving, like, I'm
Yeah.
still like, it's still storming. Like, yeah, that's okay. You can't rush it. Like, are you gonna blow on the clouds, tell them to move? No, we can observe them, acknowledge them,
Yeah.
and wait for them to move at the pace that they need to move, and continue to live our lives. Because at the end of the day, once they move, the sky's still there. We're still there. That's not gonna change.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I love that example too. I think
Mhm.
it's sort of like, again, emphasizing this point about it being passive, right?
Mhm.
There's certain moments, I think, to be honest with a lot of folks that might be in situations where it's hard to see past them,
Mhm.
that it's very natural, like depending on the circumstance, you might not think that you're ever going to resume
Mhm.
healthy functioning. So for example, you lose a loved one, or you have a relationship that falls apart, and that's obviously something that you were quite invested in, or this person that you were quite invested in, and that's no longer there. So then it could be very hard to envision and imagine what life looks like beyond that moment in time, which might make you feel like you're kind of cocooned or
Mhm.
insulated in this period of just being sad and depressed and frustrated and maybe anxious and hurt. But as you said, the fact is still the same. Those feelings will pass. The only condition I would say that they don't is if you choose not to acknowledge them. If you choose not to work through them, then you're right. You could theoretically you could end up stuck there, and there are conditions for that.
Mhm.
But we don't. But we don't have to be there. Is the point?
Mhm.
We don't have to stay in that moment in time, but we have to choose, and I emphasize choose, to work through that stuff. So that way we can say, you know what? It was 3 months ago. It was 6 months ago. It was a year ago. And I was in a really dark place at that time. But now I've done a lot of my work. I've sought out support and allowed myself to get assistance from others that care about me, to not stay in this rat race anymore. Let me get off the hamster wheel, so to speak, so that I can move forward.